Okay, let's get started. So, this is the astrology report for June 2025, and I'm your host, Montgomery Norton, with AstroCosmology.com. You can reach me there to book a reading. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on my website. You can also find me at AstroCosmology on Facebook. And yeah, let's jump into it. June is a big month. Just like 2025 is a big year. We have so many things going on. Um, I had to shorten my pamphlet from last night. For those of you who missed the class last night, we have a lot to talk about, but I'm going to focus it for this video, of course. There's pages of information that I printed up. But let's jump into it. So 2025 is big shifts. Basically, all the outer planets, Jupiter through Pluto, are all changing signs, as well as the lunar nodes change signs in January. So they moved, the North Node moved from Aries to Pisces, because it goes backwards, and South Node then Libra to Virgo. Basically, North Node in Pisces is like Messianic leaders. One way to describe it is Messianic leaders who promise to clean up the mess of the past, South Node and Virgo, might emerge, especially in politics. People who inspire collective hope and offer visions of healing and practical solutions for fixing what is broken. Sound familiar? It's a little on the nose right there. But the other big shifts are in March, Neptune moved from Pisces into Aries, creating a new 165-year cycle. So Pisces, the last sign, moving into Aries, the first sign. So literally a new first cycle of the whole zodiac. Then in May, Saturn moved into Aries from Pisces. These two are going to be doing a whole dance for quite a few years. We'll get into that more in the end. We'll get to the details first. But then this month, Jupiter moves from Gemini into Cancer. And next month, July, Uranus changes signs from Taurus into Gemini. So for this month, June 1st, we have a couple things happening. Jupiter semi-sextile Uranus. Jupiter's at 28 degrees of Gemini and Uranus is at 28 degrees of Taurus. So they're on the last degrees, basically, of the signs. Excuse me, a little itch in my eye. So this can be described as the social benefit of the upheaval that we've been experiencing here on Earth, Uranus and Taurus, and our minds are beginning to understand what it all means. These are the last degrees of the signs for both these planets. So this is a wrapping up of our social communication about the electrical cosmological shifts taking place on the Earth. Soon, Jupiter will be in Cancer, like I said, on June 9th. And Uranus will be moving into Gemini July 8th. Also happening on the 1st is Venus conjunct Chiron in Aries. So, what is our personal feminine wound? How has the masculine dynamic wounded the feminine experience or principle? And basically, now is the time to heal that wound of the selfish masculine warrior. This is big times. This is the opportunity for the feminine to deal with wounding by Aries, by the masculine, by the warrior, by the selfish ego. Then on June 5th, Venus enters Taurus. Um, Venus comes back to her home sign of sensuality. It's time for us to enjoy our bodies and the pleasure of the physical experience. This is a time of indulging in nature, food, drink, massage. Woo. Uh, Basically, Venus coming back home. And this is a chance for us to really feel into the feminine nature of our own individual experience, of our collective experience, and of our global experience. Then on June 8th, Mercury conjuncts Jupiter, 29 degrees of Gemini. 29 degrees, excuse me, 45 minutes. So it's like the last 15 minutes of the sign. Excuse me. At the final degree of Jupiter in Gemini, we get a last insight, Mercury, into the social expansion of the mind and thought, understanding the value of clear communication and how it benefits society. Then on June 9th, next day, Mercury squares Saturn. Mercury conjuncts Jupiter and then squares Saturn. So at the same time, this new concern for the safety of others is in conflict. So Mercury in Cancer, in conflict square our own personal needs for boundaries and putting form to our own work and our responsibilities. Then on June 9th, as well, Venus squares Pluto. Yeah. Venus will be in Taurus at 3 degrees. Pluto's in Aquarius at 3 degrees. And as Venus begins its foray into Taurus, it comes into conflict and contact with Pluto's atomic transformation of community values. So we are going through the transformation of society. That is Pluto in Aquarius. It's only just begun and it's going to be around for about 30 years. And this is a moment for Venus to challenge that situation. This is a moment that doesn't feel so good for the sensual self or the feminine principle. But luckily, it doesn't last so long. It's only a few days. Basically, from June 7th, you'll start feeling it to the 13th. The exact conjunction happening at 10:20 a.m. on June 9th. Also, June 9th, Jupiter makes its transition into Cancer at 2 p.m. So Jupiter leaves Gemini to enter into its sign of exaltation, Cancer. Jupiter feels very good in Cancer since both Cancer and Jupiter are associated with growth, tradition, and a sense of comfort and prosperity. What's particularly noteworthy about this transition is that in the last 3 months of the year, Jupiter will trine both Saturn and Neptune. When both of them retrograde back into Pisces, and that will then form a harmonious water trine between Jupiter in Cancer at the first degrees and Saturn and Neptune at the first degrees of. So this transit will infuse the Cancer area of our charts with a sense of optimism and abundance. This is where we will feel more confident to go after our goals. And sorry, I'm kind of glitching because it's actually by the end of the year, which I mentioned, Jupiter will be at the last degrees of Cancer, and then Saturn and Neptune will be at the last degrees of Pisces. That's the water trine. But right now, Jupiter is entering Cancer. Also, June 11th, full moon, 20 degrees of Sagittarius. This is an opportunity for us to feel into the fullness of our belief systems, understanding the bigness of philosophy for all its benefits and detriments. Then by June 13th, Mercury trines Lilith. We have a couple of Lilith transits here. So those of you who don't know Lilith, she basically represents the... There's a whole discussion about Lilith, and my partner knows much more of the mythology behind astrology, and I know more of the traditional astrology. And she educated me on the dynamics of Lilith, and hopefully I'll get her to do a video on it. That'd be pretty incredible. In traditional astrology, we know Lilith as the repressed feminine. Basically, it's been known as kind of the parts of ourselves that we hide, deny, and repress. Whereas my partner Tara would describe it as Adam's first wife in the Bible. And there's a whole story there, but basically Lilith was super empowered and was cast out of Eden because she didn't want to be a subject to Adam in marriage, and she created her own race of humans, empowered humans. So yeah, I would love to get a whole video on that, but not to lose too much focus. So June 13th, Mercury's in Cancer at 8 degrees and Lilith is in Scorpio at 8 degrees. And basically this is thoughts about our feelings work with the depth of our repressed and wounded feminine experience. The next day, June 14th, Venus in Taurus is opposite Lilith in Scorpio. The embodied feminine, grounded in nature, Venus in Taurus, is in a tug of war, an opposition, with the depths of our feminine wound, Lilith in Scorpio. So June 15th, excuse me, it's hot and dry today, so gotta drink my water. June 15th, Mars at 28 degrees of Leo squares Uranus at 28 degrees of Taurus. So last degrees of the signs. This is basically the masculine self-expression, Mars and Leo. Self-expression and creativity is being overrun by the radical shifts happening on the planet. So Uranus and Taurus is kind of this evolution of the planet, of Gaia. And this natural change that's happening, this revolution of the planet, is putting the ego of man in check. Mars and Leo. So male dynamic is getting its marching orders. June 17th, Mars enters Virgo. So right after that, it's a time for the masculine to then now focus on the issues of health, work, and service. The needs of the masculine are being humbled by the call of duty to the collective. Interesting times. June 18th, Jupiter at 2 degrees of Cancer squares Neptune at 2 degrees of Aries. So because Saturn and Neptune are transitioning into Aries together, we are feeling a collective awareness into this shift. And although we are putting form to the spiritual awakening of the individuated self, Neptune and Aries, collectively, so although we are putting form to to the spiritual awakening of the individuated self, collectively, it is challenging. The spiritual warrior is challenging our collective emotional sensitivity, care, and concern for others. It's interesting dynamic with this Saturn Neptune in Aries. Neptune especially is like, can be called the spiritual warrior. I'll get into more of that at the end here. June 22nd, Sun 1 degree of Cancer squares Saturn at 1 degree of Aries. So as we move into the awareness around feelings and emotions and concerns for the welfare of others, we are challenged by the work, teachings, and lessons involving the masculine drive inherent in all of us. Saturn in Aries is like the responsibility to do the work around the masculine. Finally, any of you who know me personally would know that I've been very challenged by the masculine dynamic in my life, even though I'm a big man. God is in a man's body, that's what I like to say. Anyways, June 23rd, Sun at 2 degrees Cancer, moving along, then squares Neptune. So basically, one after the other. You'll feel them pretty much at the same time. But they're exact, June 22nd and then June 23rd. So this emotional concern for others is also challenged by the disillusionment of the masculine principle. Yay. So principle of energy, motivation, moving forward, and the drive to conquer. All that will feel kind of disillusioned. That's the Neptune in Aries. Disillusionment. June 26th, Mercury enters Leo. So now our minds are focused on creativity, self-expression. It is a time for real leadership based in the heart. And we'll get a sense of a mental sense of what we want to be creating personally and collectively. June 27th, Venus at 22 degrees Taurus, sextiles the North Node, 22 of Pisces. So Venus and Taurus are grounded feminine, are embodied feminine, and appreciation for nature and Mother Earth are benefiting our karmic evolution, North Node and Pisces. Last but not least, Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries. So I'm going to read you a little bit here. Although Saturn and Neptune don't officially conjunct until February of 2026, they are less than a degree apart between May 14th of this year till September 17th. And again from January 14th until March 27 of 2026. Saturn and Neptune have been together, but not necessarily conjunct since March of 23. They were in the sign of Pisces then. And on March 31st of this year, Neptune moved into Aries. Then May 26th, Saturn moved into Aries. Saturn and Neptune should both be in Aries until September 2nd, when Saturn retrogrades back into Pisces. Neptune back into Pisces, retrogrades back into Pisces October 23rd. And they'll both stay in Pisces until January 27th of 26, when Neptune comes back forward and crosses back into Aries. Saturn will join Neptune in Aries February 13th, and they are exact at the same exact degree on February 20th, 2026. But both occupy the same conjunction until March 27th of 2026. I know that was a lot. Basically, in summary, this chapter of history will span the years of 2023 until 2028, with the more active intensification of Saturn Neptune themes between 2024 and 2027. And again in February of 2026, on the 20th, the previous cycle resolves and a new one begins. So this Saturn Neptune conjunct in Aries starts a whole new cycle. Like I said, Saturn and Neptune were present in Pisces together from March 23rd until March 2023 until March 2025. Then Saturn was in Pisces and Neptune was in Aries from March of this year until May of this year. Then Saturn and Neptune were together from May, will be together from May until September. And then, which one goes back first, I don't remember, but Saturn and Neptune will be present together in Pisces from October until January, when Neptune enters Aries January 2026, or sorry, January 26th, and Saturn enters Aries February 13th. And then again, they're exactly together at 0 degrees of Aries on February 20th, 2026. So the fact that they're together in Aries at 0 degrees is a huge deal. They'll both be together in Aries from February of 2026 all the way until April of 2028. So what does this mean? Saturn and Neptune are entering Aries together to put our dreams of what it means to be a spiritual warrior into form. We shall finally have the opportunity to do the foundational work for a new society based in healing of our collective karma. We shall be tested by the fundamental building blocks of creating our dreams by the process of logical creation. Saturn is building blocks. It's the steady process of working and creating form and structure. As well, our delusions of grandeur, Neptune and Aries, on the personal level shall be tested by time and the diligence of hard work, Saturn. Man's delusions can run afoul. Again, we're still facing what it means to deal with the spirituality of the masculine, but also the delusions of the masculine, and putting form and structure to what it means to be a spiritual warrior. I hope that was all helpful. There was a lot to cover, and forgive me for not looking up because I'm clicking through my slides. There was Ah, yes, thank you. I found a little note that wasn't present in the view that I was looking at. Um, but in addition to the whole Uranus Neptune in Aries situation, um, sorry, Saturn Neptune in Aries situation. So Neptune will stay in Aries until 2038. It marks 13 years of envisioning spiritual, medical, and artistic innovations. It's a big deal. Saturn transitions a sign every 2.5 years, roughly, 2.5 years, whereas Neptune takes about 13, 14 years. So none of us have seen Neptune and Aries in our lifetimes. Um, and the transition of Jupiter into Cancer, we already talked about that. Forgive me. Blank, cut. So that's it. Um, Once again, you can get a reading from me at astrocosmology.com. You'll see my website. You'll also see my Phoenix Rising massage website if you're here local. My partner and I both do astrology and we both do massage, and I'll get her in front of the camera soon, I hope. uh, Not that doing this makes me nervous or anything, but it's especially challenging for her. But, anyways, um, she actually has a better on camera presence than I do. Not jealous or anything. Anyways, I'll quit playing. It is intense times, and I imagine we're all feeling it. I am especially. And if you know anything about my story, I've definitely had my own intense, challenging times, to say the least. Hence the name Phoenix Rising. All right, this is me signing off, and I will talk with you next month. Thank you.